Welcome to the Tangle with Kyle Ridley. Happy August. I have a big guest today, my biggest ever, a dream come true guest that I am so thrilled and beside myself. I got to speak with the one and only remarkable, inspirational Rosie O'Donnell for 45 minutes. Pinch me moment. I still pinching myself, and it happened really quick. I wanted to speak about it last week, but I didn't want to jinx it. But it's here. It happened. I'm so thankful. I'm so grateful. As far as what I've been tangled in, I just want to focus on Rosie today. I know a lot of people are probably joining to hear this interview, but if you bear with me, especially all the millennials that grew up with her and watched her every day after school, I would like to give a full rundown of what she means to me. I couldn't do this with her because it just would have eaten up so much time, and I really wanted to get to all the questions I had. So let's go down memory lane a bit and reminisce with me, and shout out to all the millennial gay men, millennial women, millennial everyone who just felt such a bond with her throughout the decades, and I think for many our whole life. And I remember seeing Rosie O'Donnell, I think in the early 90s, maybe late 80s on VH1. She used to host the stand-up spotlight on VH1, and I remember, she had the big curly hair and she would introduce people and do her act, and I was captivated by her then, but I, wasn't, I was in my single digit years. So I didn't really get to know her until the 90s. And specifically, was it 92, 93 when A League of Their Own came out? Because up until 1995, basically till I was 10 years old, my number one celebrity obsession, like many, was Madonna. And then 1995 came and Alanis Morissette came out, and I just felt such a bond with her. And ever since, she's been my number one musician of all time. But of course, I was obsessed with Madonna as a child, and my mom was very gung-ho about it, very supportive, and she would take me to get the cassette singles, and we would go to the store and buy her like yearly calendar. And so when 4th of July came around and A League of Their Own was released, we skipped the fireworks, and my mom and I went to see A League of Their Own. That's when I really started to love Rosie O'Donnell. And then she had a slew of hits. Remember, she had the number one film for 3 years in a row, starting with A League of Their Own. She also had Sleepless in Seattle, which I adore, like so many. Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Rosie O'Donnell. And then she was in The Flintstones, which I was obsessed with. I was fully on board by the mid-90s when Rosie O'Donnell was just everywhere. And not to mention now and then, especially as a young gay kid, everything I liked, and still to this day, was female-driven. So those female-driven movies and musicians and actresses on TV and television shows and just everything, comedians. So Now and Then was one of my all-time favorites. And we talk a little bit about that film, and she shares some pretty exciting news. Although it's a rumor, we can hope that it's true. So stay tuned for that. And then we get to 1996 with the debut of her groundbreaking talk show. It was on from 1996 to 2002, The Rosie O'Donnell Show, appointment television every single day after school. I remember sitting at my kitchen table and watching her. And my mom would let me skip when Alanis Morissette was on, my number one North Star as well. And just the two of them together. I also bring that up with Rosie today, and she's still a big fan, so that was exciting to hear. But I have been watching Rosie clips online because so many are resurfacing, and there's Rosie clips accounts on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube that you can watch. And I was watching the other day her September 11th episode from 2001, and she returned to the show on September 18th. And she used to make these movies herself, these like homemade movies, and she'd add music and photographs. And she opened the show with just a beautiful montage of New York at that time, and Bette Midler's singing in the background. So if you have a chance, go to YouTube, look up not just that episode, but just all her episodes if you want to feel some feel-good nostalgia and hope and just simpler times that I would love to return to. We also talk about that in this interview. She left her show in 2002 after making enough money to just settle down with her 4 children at the time and really focus on raising them. Commendable, because she was at the height and many people wanted her to stay, especially those networks and syndicators. But she knew what was right for her, and she had a plan all along, and she left in 2002 and she took a step back. But we got some sprinkling of her throughout the years before she returned to daytime television. Remember that episode of Will and Grace where she played a lesbian mom? And I want you to look up that clip too, because she's such a beautiful, underrated actress, even though I know she is acclaimed, but she's a phenomenal actress. And just the quiver in her voice when she says that she's a lesbian on that show, it brings a tear to my eye still. She was also on Queer as Folk, one of my favorite shows back then. And we talk about that in this interview and how much she wanted to be be a part of that show and be with her, one of her idols. And remember that Curb Your Enthusiasm cameo? So memorable. Go look that up with her and Larry David. And then we get to the View year, first year, 2006. Talk about appointment television. I remember when they brought her out at the Daytime Emmys announcing that she was going to be joining the panel of The View. It was such a groundbreaking moment. I DVR'd every single episode that she was on, and every single day was captivating. To see Rosie on our TV again and in a panel and leading that panel, such a natural leader. Of course, she ruffled feathers along the way there, and we got that split screen moment on her last episode. That is, to this day, a viral clip. I assume many of you have seen it, but if you want a moment of history, then go look up that View, that last episode she was on in The View in 2007 with those panelists that she had. And also remember she would do those videos when she was in the maker room at The View, and she was singing Tina Turner's Better Be Good to Me. And I remember she had her best friends there, Jahiro, I think it was Jeanette, I don't know the names, Helen, and Rosie. She's just been a part of me for decades and decades, and I'm sharing all of this because I know so many of you can relate. And I want you to message me if you do, because let's reminisce and reflect on our Rosie days and many more to come, hopefully. Then we get to her variety show special. It was one episode, and Alanis Morissette was on there as well, and Kathy Griffin, one of my favorite people, and we talk about that in this interview as well. She did a stint on Drop Dead Diva. Remember that Lifetime show? Loved that. And then we get to the OWN year, the Oprah Winfrey Network year, which I watched every episode of that show, and we saw it start out as a big sort of Oprah-esque, big audience show. And it was at dusk, like that 6 p.m. show. And then we saw it dwindle down to sort of a watch what happens live kind of situation where it was just her in a cozy studio with one guest for an hour. Those were some hard-hitting, beautiful one-on-one interviews. And if you can look up those, I really encourage you to, because I think that's where Rosie is at her best, when she is just one-on-one with someone, really getting to the nitty-gritty of their life and their story. Obviously, we love her making jokes and throwing koosh balls and celebrating Broadway too, but she's just a phenomenal interviewer as well. Obviously, the OWN network changed a lot after that first year. It's hard to launch a network, and a lot, sort of the whole formatting of that network changed, and that show did not go on, probably as necessary, but we do reflect a little bit on that OWN year or half a year. We also talk about her stint on Web Therapy with one of my other favorites, Lisa Kudrow. We talk about the comeback, that improv show. Go look up her clips with Lisa Kudrow. I loved it, loved it, loved it. And then we get to the second year on The View, where she was with Whoopi Goldberg and two, I guess, alpha hosts. Didn't work out. You can go watch those clips as well. We talk about that and why it didn't work out. But for anyone worried about the Rosie Whoopi divide, that was many years ago. And as she says in this interview, they are grown-ass women who support other women, and they are just fine. So rest easy. Couple other roles I want to talk about. Her beautiful stint on The Fosters, a beautiful show all around about foster parents, foster children. That was a lovely show on ABC Family. She also did a wonderful miniseries called When We Rise, which Dustin Lance Black was part of, wrote, and produced. If you want to double back, I also interviewed him last year, one of my favorite interviews, and that's a beautiful miniseries that I believe you can still stream. Go find it. It was on ABC originally, so maybe it's on Hulu right now. I saw her in my neck of the woods a few years ago at the Kennedy Center, where she was in The Music Man, and got to meet her very briefly backstage and get a really blurry photo with her as she was walking out. Big highlight for me. And then we also get to the Smilf years, which was on Showtime, 2 seasons. Beautiful show, beautifully written. It was canceled too soon. We talk about that briefly in this episode, and the creator of that show, another one that you should go look up if you've never seen it. Again, it just highlights Rosie's powerful acting chops and how she can do everything. Another one that was on HBO, I Know This Much Is True, with Mark Ruffalo. Wonderful series. He won an Emmy for that. I think she should have been nominated for an Emmy. She also did a cameo on A League of Their Own series, which was on Prime Video and was canceled way too soon as well. But we had one of the producers or writers of that show, Guy Branum, on a couple weeks ago. I want you to go listen to that interview as well. And go check out that one season of that show Abby Jacobson created. It was a beautiful reboot and reinterpretation of A League of Their Own, and they really got into a lot of the stuff that wasn't covered in the actual movie as far as race and gender politics and queer life. Beautiful series. And I just encourage you to embrace this new era of Rosie because she is back on Broadway, off Broadway, in her one woman show, Common Knowledge, which she workshopped overseas in Ireland and Edinburgh. And now it's in New York. And maybe it'll get extended or maybe she'll take it to other cities. But I can't wait to see it. I've read all about it. I've been watching all of her interviews and I'm going to go see it later this week. I will give a full report on that, but I already know that I'm going to love it because, as you can see, I just love everything that Rosie is involved with, everything she touches, her hope, her spirit, her joy, her empathy. Whew. This was a long intro, but she deserves it. I really hope you enjoy this episode, this conversation. I know you will. If you could, I would really love for you to have subscribed to my podcast, The Tangle, leave a star rating, follow me on Instagram. We have over 75 episodes to catch up on, and I really care about all these people that I speak with. I do the research. I'm not into drama. I book everyone myself. I edit the stuff myself. I do all the social media. I care deeply about everyone I speak with. I'm inspired by all of them, and I hope that comes across. So here we go with this week's guest, the incomparable, hope-filled, hope-giving, beautiful all around, Rosie O'Donnell. Thank you so much, Rosie, for speaking with me. Thank you so much for reading my message. I'll do like a full intro before, but you've just been with me for nearly 40 years. I'm 41 at this point, and starting with VH1 days, you hosting the comedy specials and A League of Their Own, saw that 4th of July with my mom the weekend it came out. Beautiful Girls, watched every episode of your talk show, The Own Year, The View, all your books, everything. Your special, your variety special. I saw you a few years ago at the Kennedy Center when you were in The Music Man. So to be able to speak with you after all this time, it's a dream come true. I have 4 pages of notes and we'll race through as many as we can. But I just thank you. Thank you for
Well, you're
being
more than
everything you've
welcome,
done.
Kyle. It's always beautiful to hear stories of people who, like you, have been, supporting me and my career for all this time. It's very touching. It really is.
Thank you. And I know you're very busy. You've been making the press rounds. You're getting asked a lot of the same questions. I'm hopefully going to be a little more niche. There's certain things that I
Okay.
just don't want to talk about that I'm sure you're tired of talking about.
Okay, great. When they ask you the same questions, you can only have the same answer because there's only
Exactly.
one truth, right?
I know, and
So,
I was a morning show producer for a decade, and those 3 to 5 minute slots, it's like, oh, you can't really get to the underbelly of the stuff that we want to hear about. So I want to start with you being such a maternal figure for our generation, a millennial as me, and as someone who lost their mom at 10 years old. Even before you adopted, we saw you as a motherly figure. Then we saw you adopt all your kids. I was wondering, did it naturally come to you when you started having people express how maternal they felt you were to them? Or was there a moment where it clicked, like, I am kind of this generation's Barbara Streisand, as you found to be motherly figure?
no, I don't know about that, Kyle. But, listen, I always wanted to be a mom since I was a very little girl, since before I lost my mom. I used to play with dolls. I would love everyone's babies. I come from a big family, Irish people. There were always babies around to hold. And then the teacher that sort of took over mothering me, Pat Marivelle, that I named the school I have after her, she had 2 children, Jesse and Alex, and I got to be the mother aunt figure to them, but before I became a mother, I was sure I would be a mother. I had a lot of friends who got to be, 30 and went, "I don't know if I wanna do it," and I was like, "I am dying to do it." I just wanted to wait till I had enough money to take care of the kids and to be sure that I could support them, for the rest of our lives. And so I waited until I had done a few movies and saved some money. And then in 1995, I adopted my first child and didn't stop.
It's a beautiful thing. And do you feel motherly to people that come up to you?
Yes, especially young ones like you. I have 5 children. They're between the ages of 13 and 31. That's a big stretch, for continual mothering. But I do feel that. I feel the love that people give me. Everyone puts you in a different role in their life. Some people think, oh, she's the greatest, and some people think she's the worst, So it just depends. But the one-on-one interaction between human beings, like your letter that I read, and thought, oh, I would like to do this with him, because I could sense what it means to you. And I understand that. I had a tremendous connection to Barbara and to, Julie Andrews and Bette Midler and Florence Henderson and all of these women that I looked up to and did put in a maternal role because I didn't have a mother.
Thank you for that. And your new show, Common Knowledge, starts with you losing your mother at 10 years old to breast cancer. And you've been such an advocate for breast cancer awareness and early detection, watching you throughout the years. And more recently, you've become an advocate for heart disease after having a near fatal heart attack, the Widowmaker.
Yes.
So many people confide in you and look to you for encouragement or words of hope when they're going through these difficult health struggles. Have you learned to stay grounded and comforting while constantly taking in others' fears and grief and anxiety?
I've gotten used to it, to tell you the truth, because when people meet me, they have a strong reaction usually when people stop me. Sometimes they cry, and they get very emotional and they'll tell me, "Oh, my mother loved you." Like I went out last night with Cynthia Nixon and Christine, her wife, who I am good friends with and I love them very much. And they brought 2 friends, and they said they're big Rosie fans, and I was like, "Oh, that's sweet." So this gay couple who had been, together for 27 years, and he told me a story about his mother, and he had pictures of his mother with the Rosie swag on and, and she's no longer here, and she has to be buried in the Rosie O'Donnell shirt that she had. And the family was like, "We can't do that." So they put her in a nice dress, and at the funeral, this man who I met, he had cut the label off the shirt, rolled it up, and put it in his mother's hand when she was in the casket. And he said, "No one touched that. That's what she wanted." And I was overwhelmed by it. I got all choked up. I started, it's really hard. I read once in Bette Midler's book, A View from Abroad, where she said mass adulation from the multitudes was too much for her. She didn't like it. But one on one was too overwhelming, and I feel a little bit the opposite that, the mass adulation you don't really feel because it's kind of vague and meta and you don't really feel it. But when someone comes and looks you in the eye and tells you the story of what you've meant to them, it does move you and change you. And it's like pouring water to a plant, and it just made me grow and grow and grow in gratitude and thanks for all the love that I've received.
I thank you as well. My mom was diagnosed with breast cancer 5 years ago and went through and she made it through, and last year was diagnosed with endometrial cancer, and she's making it through that. So you're always a constant comfort, and I've referred your words to her as well, and I know she appreciates it.
Well, tell her I send my love and I know she'll be able to survive this. It's not easy and, cancer's a beast and you would think at this day and age we would have a cure for it. Now, as I tell women with breast cancer, now it's very curable. It's very curable now. With early detection is our best prevention, and get in there and take care of your health.
Exactly. Now you moved to Ireland 18 months ago, and we've heard all about it. You're being asked all about it. You say that when you first moved there, you saw your mother everywhere you went, whereas you hadn't seen her since 1973.
Right.
You say the move also made you braver all around. People didn't think you would move. You liked your comfort zones. Was there a moment where it all clicked in Ireland where you were like, okay, I'm ready. I need to run to my keyboard and actually tackle this one woman show. I'm ready to dig into these emotions that maybe I was resistant to.
Well, it's interesting. I didn't try to write a one woman show. I write every day and I post stuff on Substack and Instagram of my writings. And everything that was coming out had to do with my mom or had to do with my dad or my childhood. And I was very surprised, but I was faced with these people who looked like me everywhere I went. So after a while, I decided to do some stand-up because I didn't know very many people, and I didn't really know what to do with myself, and Clay's at school all day, and then I was like, "Let me try some clubs at night," and I met the wonderful stand-up comics of Dublin and got to perform there, and at first, I only did the comedy parts about the move, and then I was like, "What would it be if I added the stuff about my mom?" And the first few times I tried it, I cried through it. And, as a performer and an entertainer, you don't want to do that. You don't want to indicate to the audience what they should feel. You want to let them feel what they take from it. So I really approached it then as a play. I said, well, these are the lines in the play, and this is what my character has to deliver. And I was able to get a little bit of distance from it. Yet some nights still, it creeps up on me when I'm telling it. You try to be as present and in the moment as you can. And when I think about that last time I saw her, which is the closing of the show, and her teaching me how to use a dictionary, it chokes me up, you know? It really does. And I know it moves people, and I see people in the audience crying. I'm also one of those people who starts crying when other people start crying. If somebody's crying, it's very hard for me not to cry. Or when I see myself crying, like in a movie or in the Barbara Streisand interview, I start to cry watching it. So I have to be cognizant of those things and move forward knowing that those things are challenges for me. But I appreciate every person who comes over and talks to me. I really do. And it's been wonderful since I've been back, I have to say. Cab drivers stop their cab, roll down the window. Rosie, glad you're back.
I have some friends who saw you workshopping the show overseas and just were blown away. So I can't wait to see it next week.
Oh, I'm so happy.
And you've written a couple mini memoirs, which I love, have in the back, Find Me and Celebrity Detox. They capture certain periods of your life. This show, to me, it sounds like it could be bookends to a possible full-fledged memoir. Has that ever been in the back of your mind? Is that a possibility? Or are you going to wait a couple more decades?
It's a possibility, but I have to say that I have a shared experience with my five siblings. And when someone becomes famous in a family of five children where their trauma has occurred, they don't like to share in the same way that I do. It's my need as an artist, and they're all successful in their fields and doing very well in their life, but they don't like the attention that comes sometimes with the truths that I tell, and they maybe are not ready to discuss that publicly or have everyone know. So I'm very cognizant of not stepping on their emotional toes. So I haven't really ventured into a big memoir, although after reading Streisand's, I was like, when I'm 84, I'm going to write the book like this and tell all the truths um, but I haven't really considered it yet. If I write, something, I would like to write a book about parenting an autistic child and what joy and challenges that has brought.
I'll read whatever you write. And if it's a 47-hour memoir, I'll be listening to it all the time. I assume you listened and read it?
Well, I listened first and then I read it. There's something about her voice that is just so comforting to me.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, I know you're a big reader. Did you read, side note, Lena Dunham's new memoir? Was
Oh
blown
god,
away by
yes.
it.
I thought
Blown
it was
away.
brilliant.
Yep,
Absolutely brilliant, and her take on fame, her take on misogyny and, the body consciousness that society makes you have when you're famous and what is done to you when you don't fit the standard that they think you should. Um, I think she's brilliant. I really do, and I look forward to what she's gonna do next.
me too. Not to get too political, I'm not a political journalist, but you left the United States after reading every page of Project 25, which most people did not do and have not done. You also have an autistic, non binary child, so you were naturally concerned for their safety. It's such a big decision to move across seas out of the country. What was it like when you actually boarded that flight and touched down in Ireland that first day?
Well, I had a lot of days of going, "I did it. I actually did it." Like, I didn't I'm not someone who likes to travel. I'm really not, and, I would go to my home in Miami for 20 years when I owned that. That was my only vacation spot. I had no interest in going to Europe. I had no interest in, now I would fly to London to see a show if I wanted to, but I was not traveling the world. In my 64 years before I went to Ireland, I had only been to London and Paris and Rome on in 64 years. That was it. When I had access to do this, I just chose not to. So when I told my family I was doing it, none of them believed me. And when I told my friends, they're like, "We can't get you to go to Cancun." What do you mean you're moving to Ireland? And so, I was sure after I read that book, I thought about all the people in Nazi Germany who didn't get out early enough. And I thought, I don't want that to be my truth. And I also don't want to be engrossed in every detail of what he's saying and doing every moment, which is what happens when you're here in the United States. In Ireland, I took all of the American news channels off of my TV. You can like click and say which ones you want now. So that really helped because I haven't really been overwhelmed with his presence as I am when I'm here. And it's constantly kind of brought up in the news in a way that doesn't really serve the country. The news is so compromised and corporately owned, and it no longer functions as a fourth estate set to hold up the pillars of our democracy. And that's a tragedy.
I hear you. I was a morning news producer for a decade and left last year after 10 years of waking up at 3 a.m. And I was like, I can't report on this anymore. It's draining, mind and body.
It's draining and spiritually, it really is draining. It's too much. I mean, the stress level in the United States is so high compared to Ireland. There's a
Mhm.
piece that I found there that is very healing for me.
I'm glad you found that. We all hope to find it. And the political divide is so bleak and so unmoving in our country right now. You're immersed in it. You've had to take breaks for per your therapist's advice, but many have simply cut people off during this time. Do you strive to bridge the gap and find common ground in your personal life, or have you had to cut people off and simply remove yourself?
Well, I don't really have any people in my life who support him. I think it would be very difficult to do that. Now, I am friends with Winona Judd, who I love very much, and I've known her for many, many years, and she is a supporter of Trump. And somehow we never bring it up. I like kind of give her a grace in a way. She's had so much in her life with her mom taking her own life and just the complicated nature of her upbringing, and I really love her and I care about her, and for some reason I'm able to put that aside when we interact. But aside from why, I can't think of anyone else in my life who supports him, and I don't understand the people who do. His cruelty is so blatant. His criminal behavior is so obvious. His misogyny, his racism, his homophobia, he's just a very dark spirit, and, I don't know why that's not obvious to the world. I mean, I think it's obvious outside of the US, because in Ireland, not one person has said to me that they like him. People come over to me and go, "Rosie, I'd like to buy you a pint because we hate him too." And I'm like, "Fantastic."
Both avoiding saying his name. Yeah, that was my goal in this, but not to, and this is not a political conversation. It's more about hope. And that's my next question. You said no one is pressing the alarm button, journalists, politicians, people in power. Fear is a tool of fascism and it's currently working. You've said that. And then you are waiting for the day a female reporter stands up and says, "Fuck you, you pedophile. Who do you think you are?" Are
Exactly.
you hopeful as we move forward? And is there any advice on maintaining hope in such dark and scary times where people feel helpless?
Well, in every major choice in your life, you only have one question to answer. Will you choose faith or fear? And fear is the tool that they use. So we can't choose fear. We have to stand up for what we know are the truths of basic human decency. And we don't have that anymore. And it used to be a calling card for the United States. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal, endowed by their creator with inalienable rights. That's what our country was founded, that all people are equal, and that is not true anymore of this nation, and it's a tragedy. But I have hope that the nation will come together, that his MAGA enterprise will crumble when he's gone, and he looks very, very unwell. If you speak to doctors, and I speak to many doctors, they will tell you that they think he is most definitely suffering from chronic heart failure and dementia and maybe kidney disease. He's incontinent. He can't control his bowels, his urine. He's very, very ill. And I don't know that he's going to last till November to the elections that I believe he will try to um, prevent. I really do. And if you read Project 2025, nothing is out of the options for them. What they printed there was so harrowing was so overwhelming that I thought, if people don't pay attention to this, shame on them.
Thank you for sharing that. And understandably, you've been candid about having PTSD from decades of being in the media, being taunted by this person, and you turned to painting to help excise the demons, so to say. It reminds me of Kathy Griffin and everything that she's been through over the last several years and PTSD and a suicide attempt. Have you two been sounding boards throughout this? And what do you make of comedians and women specifically being under attack while criminals are getting a blind eye turned to?
Yeah. And, I mean, I have to say that any woman who stands up to him, I support. The Epstein women, I am a tremendous supporter of. I wanted to have them on guests of any show that I do. I had all these images of how to bring them out and do something that would not be in your face, argumentative, but just showed the totality of what happened to them when they were children and how we are ignoring this. And I felt horrible for what he did to Kathy Griffin. I didn't agree with her choice of having that decapitated mask. I know that she was doing it for shock value and wanted to cause a ruckus, but I don't think she was ready for the kind of torment that he put her through for so many years. And I think she did suffer a lot and went through some very dark times and did, in fact, try to take her life. And, and I think of Virginia Guthrie. That's who I think of. The ones who don't make it through, the ones who don't survive his abuse, his horrific, horrible, unending abuse. It's been over 20 years since I first said that thing about him on The View, and he went crazy, and he hasn't let up. And people say, well, you haven't let up. I'm like, I know, but if I, a person of privilege and power, don't have the courage to stand up to him, what hope do immigrants have who are in detention centers illegally, concentration camps in the United States? How did we become this? And how can we get back? And I am all for forgiving the people who say online, they go, I voted for him 3 times and I regret it. I didn't understand. I now understand. I think we have to say, welcome back to these people. Welcome back, because they were lied to by his show, The Apprentice, for so many years. He was sold as fact when it was, in fact, fiction, and they created a monster. And I think right now he believes he's in a reality show, staging everything from assassination attempts to everything that he has done. It's demented. I mean, it's really, really sick, toxic, and dangerous. And we're on the precipice of disaster. And unless everyone in America gets together and stands up and says, no, this is not who we are, and this is not who we will be, we're going to be in trouble.
It's been 22 years since you got married, and I remember that day. And you boarded a plane and decided to get married because of political unrest at that time and the challenge toward gay marriage. You also did the Rosie Cruise for families and have always championed adoption. It's now 2026, and we eventually got the right to marry nationwide, and now a lot of it is being re-examined, re-questioned. I've been married, I've been divorced. What do you make of this refocus now on LGBTQ plus equality?
It's all part of their plan, is to, go after the most vulnerable minorities and start there and dehumanize them and demonize them and turn public sentiment against them. And that's what he's trying to do with trans people. And it's unforgivable. It's truly unforgivable. And gay people have to be alert. We were the pink triangle people in Nazi Germany. And I think that this government is moving in a direction that is as terrifying as that ever was. And we, as the beacon of freedom for 250 years, have to stand up against it.
We'll lighten up a little now. Thank you for that. You recently shut down the Jimmy Kimmel replacement rumors. You are going to be hosting for a week, but you're going right
Yes.
back to Ireland as your child starts 8th grade. You did say, however, daytime would be interesting. I
Yes.
mean, 30 years later since your original talk show, it's changed so much. What would daytime look like? Would it be streaming? Would you want a solo show or have a co-host or a panel? What would that look like?
It would look a lot like my old show, to tell you the truth. I think America wants nostalgia. I think what they don't want is celebrity culture. I think celebrity culture is dead in America. And, there was a time where if you could get a big star on your show, the numbers went through the roof. Well, that was before the internet, really. It was before you could literally write a DM to me and I'll respond. Like celebrities were out of the reality of you contacting them. Like if internet was around when I was a kid, I never would have went to school for the slimmest chance that Barbara Streisand would react to something I posted. And all I would do would be write. I used to write to her handwritten letters when I was little and send them to Columbia Records. And she never got them. There were millions of people. She was like streaming at a time when most people had dial up. Everybody got the signal of her brilliance, and I was one of the millions. When people come over to me and they go, favorite Barbara movie, and we start to go about Barbara, I'm like, these are my people. She like, in Close Encounters, her voice is like that. It called to all these people, and people were so amazed, as I am every time I listen to her, that she had this ability. And it reached right into my soul and my mother's soul. And for generations, people have been looking up to her. And all I say, and a lot of times when I post about her, it's always the same line: in all the world so far, she's the greatest star. But I think the time for celebrity culture has died down. We have been in the land of gross excess in this country for a long time. And I would like to do mostly human interest stories, tell good news, have fun and games with the people like we used to, get to have Broadway on. And if a celebrity wants to come on and chat, that's fantastic. But it wouldn't be because they had a movie to promote. It wouldn't be that you would see them on every other talk show with the same lead-in questions and the same stories. I would like to take someone who says, who wants to come and have fun for 20 minutes? Who wants to come and play a game? Who wants to come and give away prizes to the audience? Like, that's what I would like to do. Bring back hope. Bring back an hour of peaceful joy. And that's what I'm interested in. Now, would it be streaming? I suppose, because the syndication market is pretty much dead. And I think I would be open to doing it on a streaming service. I'm open. My agents are taking meetings and figuring out what would be the best option. And it would be when Trump is no longer in power. That's when I would want to start. And that's really when the healing must begin. The healing must begin in this country. And if I could be in any way part of that, I would be very, very happy. People ask me, why do you talk about him? Why do you talk about what's happened in the country? Only in America could my story have been true. Could I have come up in the way I did with the family I had and the economic place we were in to the place that I am now, not just financially, but, this country has given me so much that I feel that I owe it to this country to stand up for it in any way that I can, in the hopes of healing it. And I'm not thinking that I'm that powerful. There are millions of us who feel the same way. You see them in the streets protesting ICE. You see them standing up for their neighbors. You see them trying and often sometimes murdered in the streets. Murdered in the streets, you know? And it's unbelievable. I read an article, 1,600 people are ripped from their families and taken to concentration camps a day in the United States of America. It's unreal to me.
We definitely need more hope. We need more joy, more promise. And I would be watching every episode as I did in the 90s. I would watch every day after school. And when I started this podcast, I made a dream list of guests, and you were right up top with Alanis Morissette, my other North Star, who my mom would let me skip school to see on your show.
I
And then
love her. She's one of the geniuses of our lifetime. Her lyrics are so profound and moving, and she had a wonderful wonderful documentary. You probably have seen it if she's on your list about being a highly sensitive person. And I watched that and I thought, this is what my therapist has been telling me for years, right? I'm way too sensitive for this earth. I get very, very overwhelmed by the feelings and emotions of not only myself, but others, of people in pain, of people struggling, of the unfairness, of injustice. And I always have since I was a little kid. And I don't know that there's any way for me to change that. But from Alanis Morissette, I've learned how to live with it and how to, protect yourself from some of the incoming that often overwhelms.
Thank you for sharing that. And you do talk about providing joy and comfort with a possible reboot of your show down the road. I want to touch on 15 years ago, your year at OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, because it was such a moment, and the network basically changed after that first year. But I watched every single episode and how it, became a one-on-one interview series with these long form, really hard-hitting, really memorable interviews. What do you make of that year when you look back 15 years later? How do you encapsulate that period?
Well, Oprah Winfrey is sort of a once in a lifetime celebrity. And as an abused Black poor girl from the South, what she has done and made of her life is fairly remarkable. I mean, it's, there's no other word for it. It's remarkable. And so to be on her team was something that brought me tremendous joy. I always thought as a young girl, if I ever get famous, I'm going to form a Justice League. It's going to be me and Jane Fonda and all of these women that I looked up to would get together and cure all the problems for children in the country. And we would form like a Justice League. And so Oprah Winfrey was one of the people that I wanted in the Justice League. And so when she asked me, I said yes. And I went out to Chicago because she had her whole thing there, and I thought it would be easier than trying to do the show in New York again. It would give it a different vibe. And, our the way we work is very different. We have different styles of working and uh, you know, it didn't fit. We didn't gel, but also it was the first year. Everybody was trying to figure it out, and I did my best. I wanted to play for the team and score for her, and I wanted to help her build that into something spectacular. And so I don't have any regrets about it. I wish it had been better received, and we had better clearances, and we had more programming so people could stay and watch. And but, it was the beginning, and I knew that when came into it. It was a startup network, and I don't regret it at all. And she paid me very, very well.
You were the queen of desk for that year. I remember that was the branding. It was like
Uh,
a 6 p.m. show. I watched every episode. I loved it. I also loved your recent interview with friend Anna Navarro, also View co-host.
yeah.
I Is it safe to assume you've been asked to return and just would rather do other interviews outside of the View?
Well, yeah, they've asked me before, but when I was there last, I had a sort of a tense time with Whoopi. Again, same situation. Somebody I
I
admired
watched every
greatly.
episode.
Right. I
It was
admired
must-see
greatly,
TV.
wanted to be on her team. I admire her EGOT status. I have respect for her. And I expected that we would be like, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan passing the ball back and forth and then shooting and, leading the team to victory. But that's not exactly what happened. And I think maybe she felt encroached upon in some way. And I was never trying to encroach. I was just doing it the way that I knew how to do it. And it didn't go so well. So I didn't want it to be awkward and go on there and make it awkward. But I've seen Whoopi in the years past. I did a film that she was in as well. And we've gotten past it and we're grown ass women. And she's a woman who supports women, as am I. And so I will go on the 30th anniversary next year and be on with in whatever way they want me just as a guest. They're bringing back all the hosts, I think, for the 30th season. And,
So
I'm very
exciting.
proud of that show, what it's become, and how
Yeah.
it really speaks to the people and to politics. And that was not the case when I first joined.
I hope they bring every host back. I've watched all throughout the eras, and yeah, obviously you're in my favorite era. Also hope they bring Michelle Collins back. She kind of got the short end of the stick, and she's brilliant.
Many people got the short end of the stick there. It was, it was a factory where people were being churned in and out, and their tenuous security. Nobody was got to be calm. It also was a show at the time that was run by a man, a show created by a woman for women about women, and the man was deciding what we should talk about, and that didn't sit right with me.
I get that. And I like that you and Whoopi just have your own understanding now because I think a lot of millennial gay men, we grew up on Sister Act, the Flintstones, a League of Their Own, and we're like, these two icons, we want them to be best friends. So it's probably stressing us out more. But to know that you guys
Well,
are
I
fine.
wanted to be best friends too, to tell you the truth. I went to her house before I went on it, and we had a lovely lunch and talked about everything. And I was like, I'm here for you. And, I thought I was going in safe and sound, and it didn't turn out that way from day one. I made the mistake of throwing to a commercial when she was still talking because I saw the guy going like this. And I was like, let me just, and I said, we'll be right back with Whoop after this. And then she was very upset by that.
It was also your natural state. You're a host. You've done it. You've
I
done it for many
know.
years. All right. I know we
It
only have
was,
a few minutes left. I will race
yeah.
through these.
Okay.
Okay. I've spoken with so many comedians on this show. Judy Gold, your old producer, Lisa Traeger, Joe Dombrowski. We also talk a lot about like the divide in comedy right now, where a lot of podcast bros are getting involved in politics and interviewing politicians and sort of influencing elections. Do you have a comedy community, or are you kind of outside of that? And like, how do you compare it to the 80s and 90s?
It's much different. I found a little community in Ireland of stand-up comics, but it really is an art form for people who are unknown because you go on the stage, no one knows everybody. You introduce them to your life and they find similarities in their own and laugh at a stranger. That's sort of the setup for stand-up. And once you become a known entity, it kind of ruins that dynamic. So I'm out of that realm. I mean, the people that I started with are all like, Ray Romano, Chris Rock, like those people in my graduating class of stand up, Adam Sandler, all these guys who are geniuses and have done so much with their careers, Seinfeld and Larry David. These are the people that I was in the clubs with when I was young. And so, having been out and having done movies and then my own show, it kind of removed me from that. But it is something that I admire about like Judy. She goes and works out at, these little clubs all the time
Mhm.
and is still a vital part of that community. And a lot of times I would call her and say, "Can you take me down to the Comedy Cellar?" She's like, "You don't need me." I'm like, "I do need you because I don't know any of the comics now. Like I walk in there and I'm unknown. They're all unknown to me. It used to be you'd walk in and you'd see all your friends. Hi, where you working this week? What are you doing? It was a wonderful community. I have that community now on Broadway. That's where I feel, part of a real community of people.
And speaking of that, I always ask people on this show, The Tangle, what are you currently tangled in that you're loving, immersing yourself in? Obviously, your show, but I know you're a big Broadway person, movies, shows, music, reading. What are you loving right now?
Cat's the Jellicle Ball, and I am appalled that it's closing. Absolutely appalled. And I think Andrew Lloyd Webber should take some of his billions of dollars that he's made on Broadway and save the show. It deserves to be saved. I've seen it 3 times. I'm going back to see it 3 more times before it closes on the 8th. I'm taking all my children. I've taken friends who I think really need to see it. It is 2 hours of joy and brilliance. And they took a show that had no book, that was just poems, and they made a story out of it that breaks your heart. And it's about gay history. It's about honoring the people who came before us. And it's an unbridled, beautiful, loving, joyful show. And I am heartbroken that I don't have my own show to talk about it every day. And there's a guy named Sidney Harcourt who plays Rum Tum Tugger, and I am in love with this guy. He is my new Tom Cruise. When I go on Jimmy Kimmel, I want to bring him on and introduce him to America and apologize to Tom. But a woman's needs change as they get older, and this is the new guy I want mowing my lawn and bringing me a lemonade.
I was just watching clips. It was probably a decade or 15 years ago when you were sitting in a studio watching clips of this Rosie O'Donnell show and providing commentary on it. And Tom was part of that. Yeah, the Jellicle Ball. When I go next week to see you at night, I'm seeing the matinee of O'Mary with Meg Stalter, which I know you enjoyed.
Unbelievable. Absolutely brilliant actress. I mean, brilliant. That woman is going to be a superstar. I mean, she's already getting up there, but I think she can do anything that she wants. The choices that she made in that show, her facial expressions, her acting, her physical comedy, she was epic and genius.
Can't wait. All right, we're going to close this out with a rapid fire. If you just want to give a sentence or the first thought that comes to mind on some of these roles that you've had.
Okay.
Now and then. Could there be a reboot? People are like revisiting and refinding that movie now.
Well, I'm going to tell you a rumor, but I'd like to remind everyone it's only a rumor that they're going to have a sequel and that perhaps Lena Dunham is going to write the sequel and direct it. Now, that was the rumor about 8 months ago. Now, I haven't heard anything since, but I'm hoping that that happens. And, you know, Rita and me and Demi and Melanie, we would be the grandmothers. And then Christina and all the girls who played the young us would be the stars of the movie. And I think that would be wonderful to see generationally how that movie came up. But the first thing I think about when you say now and then was that I got food poisoning during the show. And it was very, very scary. I had to go to the hospital and be
Oh,
admitted to the hospital with horrible projectile vomit food poisoning. So that's another thing I think of.
I cannot wait for that reboot. We've got to make that happen. This was short-lived, but I adored the show, Smilf.
I adored it too. And I think it was a shame what happened on that show. It was shut down for, you know, reasons that I did not understand, having been there and participated in every episode. I think Frankie Shaw is a genius. She wrote it and directed it and starred in it. She's unbearably talented, and I will support her in any way that she wants in her career.
Queer as Folk.
Loved it. Got to kiss Sharon Gless, a dream of mine since I was in high school. And she remains a very close friend. I love her very much. I love the show Queers Folk. I met somebody who worked in the costumes department. I said, "You tell them I will gladly be on this show for nothing if I can kiss Sharon Gless." And they said, consider it a done deal. And I got to be on that show. And it started a beautiful friendship between me and Sharon.
Couple more. Because I knew you. And just like that.
And just like that, you know, Cynthia has been a very good friend and someone I admire greatly. She's one of the best actresses we have working right now. And when she called me and said, you know, Michael Patrick has a role he wrote for you. Will you do it? I said, is it with your character? She said, yes. I said, I'm in. And so we did it. And it was so fun. And I had it, you know, a show really lives and dies by how it is during the production from the head people. And Michael Patrick King created such a loving environment there. I love doing it, and I am so happy I got to work with Cynthia.
Two more. And I know you lost this co-star, but it was also your first sex scene, Nip Tuck.
Yes, Julian. You know, that was a heartbreak, I have to say. And he was such a gentleman. And, you know, Ryan Murphy asked me to be on that, and he asked if I would do a sex scene. I said, with who? And they said, Julian McMahon. I was like, count me in. And he had to wear one of those little like cock sock things, you know, because his butt was showing. And I was beneath him, and I had a little tube top on and just boxer shorts or whatever. And he's on top of me and he's holding himself like this so that he doesn't press his body on mine, and his arms were starting to shake, you know, and we did it 2 times and the tube top showed, and finally I just pulled it down, and he looked down and he goes, nice chest. And I said, thank you, Julian. And he was just a gentleman. He was like, he reminded me of a Kennedy. He was, you know, a prime minister's son, but he carried himself with that air. And it was so tragic to me that we lost him so soon.
Very. Last one, and three people that always come up on my show, you, Alanis Morissette, and this person who is in my all-time favorite show, The Comeback, but you were on Web Therapy. What was that like with
She
Lisa
is
Kudrow?
She's a genius, Lisa Kudrow. And The Comeback, I think, is one of the best shows ever on television. It really was. and it still is. And the fact how they did it years apart and the same thing and what it says about fame and showbiz and I just think it's so wonderful. And there's a lot of improv in web therapy. So she told me the basic premise, and I was like, let's just go. And we did it, and we had so much fun. She is, I think, one of the nicest, most real celebrities I've ever met.
I know, I can't believe it's like against her and Jean Smart this year for the Emmys. It's like, how do we
I know, and they
choose?
both deserve it. I hope it's a tie,
Me too.
like when Streisand won for Funny Girl. I hope it's a tie.
Didn't you tie with Oprah once?
I
No?
did, yes.
Yeah.
I tied with Oprah once. It was delicious.
This has been delicious. Oh, Rosie, this is an all time big moment for me, top five probably. And I just really appreciate your time. It's a dream come true. And I just can't thank you enough. And can't wait to see your show next week.
Well, thank you, Kyle. And if you ask for my assistant, and when you get there, then I'll be able to meet you after the show and give you a hug.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rosie. Big moment for me. Cannot thank you enough. I am filled with gratitude and I thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thank everyone listening to this episode. It's a big deal for me, and my podcast is a small one-man show, no ads, no sponsors. I make no money. It's a passion project and I am loving it and I'm going to continue it. And I thank you all for listening. And with that, we get to our Tangled in song. What song am I tangled in? Well, I said that I used to be able to skip school when Alanis Morissette was on the Rosie O'Donnell show. And so I want to speak about Alanis, my all-time favorite musician, another dream guest. And I've spoken about her before, but this is one of my favorite songs. And she performed it on the Rosie O'Donnell show in 1999. It's on YouTube if you want to go look at it. And it's called Unsent. It could be my favorite Alanis song of all time. It's really hard to choose, but it's definitely in my top three. I have spoken about Alanis. She kind of makes her way into every episode of mine. I have tattoos of hers. I've seen her dozens of times over the last 31 years, met her a couple times backstage for meet and greets. I have a tattoo right here that says Front Row, one of my other favorite songs of hers. I have That I Would Be Good on my arm, one of my other favorite songs of hers. I have an Olive Branch, which is a rarity song of hers that I encourage you to go listen to. But the song that I want to speak about is Unsent, and it's off her 1998 album, Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie. And it was her sophomore album, not including her two albums that she released in Canada when she was a teenager. Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie was the follow up to Jagged Little Pill, and it is my all time favorite album. Number one album of all time. I can return to it, I sing it all the time, know every word. I would love for her just to do an anniversary show of that whole album. What a treat that would be. But this song, Unsent, is a collection of letters, unsent letters, to five men in her life. And she uses different names, kind of nicknames throughout. But if you listen to it, you can sort of attach people in your life to every single person in the song, each letter in some way. And I'll give you a little insider information. There is a demo version of this song, and it includes two verses that were cut from the album. And they are beautiful verses. They're candid, they're revealing. And one of the verses is Dear Taylor, which we can assume is about Taylor Hawkins, her former bandmate who went on to the Foo Fighters and sadly passed away a couple years ago. The sentiment is beautiful all around, and it's an acoustic guitar forward song. She plays the harmonica, that classic harmonica that she used to include on albums. Maybe she'll bring it back someday. How special would that be? There's also a music video for it. This was an actual single. And what is so remarkable, because she was so going against the grain, especially in 1998, this album, Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie, is extremely wordy. A lot of the songs do not rhyme. Many of the songs don't even have choruses, and this is one of them. So to release a song that is 5 verses of just words upon words upon words, nothing repeated, no rhyming, no chorus, that was a pretty groundbreaking move. And I don't know how the record label thought of it, but I think she was in her I'll do whatever I want era. I've given you guys enough money. This is the music that I want to make. This is the album I want to make. And these are the singles that I want to release. And the video is remarkable. It shows the 5 sort of eras of these 5 men, and she's wearing wigs because there's one that's sort of in her teenage era, and she directed the music video as well. Go look that up. Could read all of the lyrics, but the snippets go, Dear Matthew, I like you a lot. I realize you're in a relationship with someone right now, and I respect that. There's another one that goes, Dear Jonathan, I liked you too much. Dear Terry, I love you muchly. Dear Marcus, you rocked my world. Dear Lou, we learned so much. I just want you to go listen to it. Again, you're probably going to find people in your life with each of these unsent letters. And the whole album itself, Supposed Former Infatuation Junkie from 1998, my all-time favorite album. And this song, Unsent, can't say enough. Thank you all for joining me this week. What a beautiful, special week for me. I encourage you all to follow Rosie. I think her show, Common Knowledge, is sold out by now, but maybe she'll bring it to another city at some point. Follow her on Instagram, TikTok, wherever you can. Go look at all the old Rosie clips. I just thank you all so much. We're going to be back next week, or you know what? I might be back later this week with another guest. I have a few lined up, and I just want to release them and share more with you. So keep up with me. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, wherever you can. I will see and speak with you guys soon. Until then, you take care of yourselves.